Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this Banya chat. Today, I'm joined by Flo, who is our registered manager. And hello, Flo. We're going to be talking about a topic that interests a lot of you, which is foster care allowance. So foster care allowance is basically your salary for a job that is fostering. So I think this is a very, very important topic because a lot of you, just as myself, don't know so much about what is involved in fostering as a job. And there are so many people who think that fostering is actually something that you do for free or as a charity. But Flo is going to explain today how this actually works. So welcome, Flo. Thank you so much for being here with us. And please tell us how come that some people think that actually fostering is not a job, but something you do kind of for free?
Okay, hello, Martha. Thank you. It's actually a common myth that once you foster a child, it's not being paid or it's done on a charitable basis. And that goes many years back, where we used to have people who used to look after children, sometimes with their extended families, sometimes child not known, and they do it voluntarily and they do it really unpaid. Now, 2020, fostering is actually a career. And because it's a career, as with any career, you would expect to receive some remuneration. Now, you've got a bit of noise in my background, and I'll just apologize for that straight away because we're doing some building works in our office. So we're making our office COVID-19 safe. So when you're in here, COVID is outside. So bear with me. We've just got a few bits and pieces going on behind me, but I can see you and I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can see Mappa. I can hear you. So I'm going to carry on. So back to the point, fostering is a career. And because it's a career, as with any career, you would expect to receive some payment. Now, Mappa used the word salary, and I'm glad she did it in that way because the fostering allowance is, in fact, not a salary. It is an allowance that is paid to help with the costs of caring for foster children in your care. It is paid per child, and it is paid on a weekly basis, although we do know in fostering, don't we, that sometimes children stay with us for 1 or 2 nights. So we'll prorata the weekly amount we're going to talk about today into daily amounts. So that is how people think it's unpaid, because that's what it was years ago. But now it's regulated, it's safe, and it's a paid career.
Okay, so I think this is very important for people to know if you're considering a career to foster care. First of all, there are thousands of children who need help. So if you have lost your job, if you would like to move out of the city, get a bigger home, look after children, this is a career that is really, really needed. And if you're looking for a job and you like children, then this would be perfect for you. So stick around. We're going to talk about everything about fostering as a career. So Flo, before we move on to the specifics about the numbers, what are the basic requirements that foster carers will need to be able to become a foster carer?
Okay, well, first of all, you need to have a space, you need to have a spare bedroom for the foster child to sleep in, because every foster child, unlike some of our own children at home, they can't share bedrooms. We expect them to have their own room, their own space, because of course they're coming from very traumatized environments. So you need to have a spare room. You need to have the time in which to care for a child. Now, I get asked this a lot. Okay, what does the time mean? How much time? Well, as parents, we still work and we are able to successfully look after our children. That's the same with foster care. You will do the same. If there's 2 of you, 1 of you might decide to stay at home. The other 1 of you might decide to work full-time, part-time. Really, it's not actually set in stone. It's about your own situation. So what works for you? But the key to it is, if you've got your children at home, what would you do? anyway, in any case, how would you care for them? What arrangements would you need to make? What things would you need to consider? And that's really the same with fostering. So yes, you can work, you can be single, you can also have a lot of support around you. Some of us live with our adult children, so they can become helpers, they can share in the fostering task, in which case, even if you are single and you are living with other adults and they are wanting to become part of the process, they can. So I think really, Mappa, the truth is, once you have a spare room, you've got an interest, you like working with children, you may even have some experience of working with children or worked in the health or social care, working with nurseries, for example. That would all give you the experience. But I don't really want to put people off who don't have the experience, because Banya gives you pre-approval training, and that's a 3-day workshop which covers basically everything you need to know in a nutshell over 3 days.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I have read a little bit about the types of fostering that there are, and then they also come with different payments. So what are these types, and what is the monetary gain for each type?
Okay, right. So you're right, Mappa. There are 3 different types, and they are a standard rate, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and there are what we call enhanced rate and complex. Now, I always find this a little bit uncomfortable when we're talking about children, kind of categorizing them. But what it means is we're not really categorizing the children. What we are categorizing is the support and the expertise and specialism we're expecting the foster carer to have. So if we look at enhanced rate, for example, which is going to be more than the standard rate, because we're expecting the foster carer to do more. So there'll be more records, for example. You may have a child who's got enhanced needs over and above what we're considered a standard rate child. So that could be lots of appointments. You're required to do lots of records, keep lots of records up to date, possibly, you know, daily or weekly, a little bit more work from the foster carer, and that attracts an enhanced rate. And then we are talking about complex. Now, the complex rate is just that, although in my view, all children, whether in care, looked after or not, are complex. But hey, that's for another discussion. But for today, complex rate really means recognizing that the child has got needs over and above standard and over and above the enhanced rate. So we're talking more than just behavioral issues. We are talking something that could look like medical support, or they may have severe disabilities, which requires, again, the foster carer to do a lot more than the expectation is of enhanced rate and of standard rate. So they're the 3 categories that we have at Banya. We don't do age banding at the moment, because we recognise that all children of all ages come with their peculiarities, things that are just about them, their individual nature, and come with their own circumstances. So for now, there's no age banding. It's more about the needs of the child.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, most of the children come into this standard rate, and then there are some, but fewer, who come into the enhanced rate, which then pays a little bit more, or the complex rate, which pays even a little bit more. Is that?
That's right. Okay. Yeah, that's right, Mappa. But sometimes we've got to remember that what can happen with foster children, they may appear to be on the standard rate. They may even join you as a foster care at the standard rate. But we, because of working with children, we start to recognize things, we start to observe things that actually we say, we think we need to have another look at this child's behavior, the child's symptom, the child's circumstances, and we may jump between the different rates depending on the needs of the child.
Okay, so they're not fixed, they can change.
They can change. And actually, it's a good idea for them to change, because what we are hoping, not just change in terms of upwards, but sometimes downwards, because we've done such a good job. And our foster carers do a great job with the children, that a child may come to us with difficulties, challenges, and actually with our work and with our intervention, there may be a need to shift. And that shift could be upwards or downwards, or remain the same, but slightly different.
Okay, this is great. So I know that this is what everyone wants to hear about. So let's move on to the numbers. So
Yeah.
what do people earn? What is the allowance for each of these stages?
Okay, so we'll start with the standard, because like I said, that's going to be the focus of our discussion today. So the standard rate per week per child is £440 per week per child. Now that £440 is broken down into two sections. So the first section is the main allowance. So that's going to be £385 per child per week. And we automatically deduct from that £440, 440p, we deduct, and now what that little money is, we call it a holiday fund, and it's £15.40 per week. We automatically deduct it, and we deduct that and we put it in a little pot for our foster carers, because we acknowledge, and it is widely acknowledged, that looking after children, looking after foster children has its challenges, but all foster carers, we recommend, has about 2 weeks off a week without the foster child. Now, how lovely is that? And usually what tends to happen is foster carers, if they have their children at home, they have foster children, they have a week away from both, 2 weeks in fact, which is great. Now, in order to fund that so that their fostering allowance doesn't have any breaks, then we use this fund that we've built up on foster carers' behalf to pay back to them as a lump sum. Now, what I have seen, Mappa, which is really exciting, is now, because a lot of our foster carers are with foster children long term, actually, they say, I don't want to break without my foster child, and we're going to go on holiday together, or as a family, or as a group. That's okay, that's fine. What we then do is the money that we put into this pot, we give it you back. So around July time, you get that money back. So, and you can make your own decision. Either you'll take respite throughout the 12 months, or you will take the respite, and that's a term we use, meaning a break, and you can get that paid back. And foster carers do make their own decisions based on their own circumstances. Mm-hmm. So that's how the foster carer standard rate allowances. All right, so can I tell you a little bit about the enhanced and the complex? Because I think that's also quite interesting to know, because of course we're expecting the carers to do a little bit more when they've got an enhanced placement. So, and a placement means child. I am using jargon which I shouldn't do, because children are children and I should refer to them as children. But when you're caring for an enhanced child, then the fostering allowance is enhanced accordingly. So the weekly rate for that child would then be £492.27. And again, we do the same formula. We take 2 weeks of that well, we don't take 2 weeks, we take a little bit, so we are building the funds for a 2 week. So in your bank account, as a foster carer, you will receive £473.34 per child per week who is on the enhanced rate category. And then we go on the other one we talked about earlier. Do you remember the complex? So this is where we're expecting a lot more from our carer. And it may be that they're doing medical administration. They could be having to have lots and lots of visits, specialist kind of work here. And for that, the weekly rate is £590.84. So it is quite a significant difference from the standard rate. And this is why I was mentioned a bit earlier about we do need to look at it sometimes and we need to adjust, because even on the complex rate, we still need to keep an eye and make sure that the foster carer is rewarded adequately. And I'm using that word reward in a financial, I hope you understand what I mean, but I mean compensated, because sometimes we're expecting them to do an awful lot in such a short period of time. So we need to also recognize that. So does that help you understand the kind of the little breakdowns?
It does. I do have two questions at this point. So when we talk about enhanced and complex, where carers are expected to do much more, I just want to make sure that this comes together with more training, and it's not just carers being left on their own, like figure it out.
No, oh, Mappa, we don't do left alone foster carers at Banya. That's what we don't do. We need a pool of highly skilled foster carers actually to care for foster children. It's only right that our children have had horrendous journeys getting to us, that we have people who are confident, people who are resilient, and people who become experts at caring for children, whether they're of a standard rate or whether they're of complex. So we've been very fortunate. Banya has a training centre. We also have links with lots of training providers, specialist training providers, who are able to give training support very quickly to a carer for a particular child. And we also have our monthly rolling program. So we offer at least a minimum of one training course per month per carer. Now, we've got a large pool of carers at Banya. So what we often do is actually have 2 or 3 training a month. So if carers quite fancy to do something else, that's absolutely fine. And if they have a request to do something, so they feel they have their own skills gap, approach us, because the chances are we'll know where to go to get it, and we'll encourage training all the time.
That sounds wonderful. And also something else that I think we need to address is how many children can one foster carer have? And
Right.
as you have said before, it's, for example, for the standard placement, it's around £400 per child. How many children can I have at one time?
Yeah, great question. It would depend on your space, but the number that we are required to approve each foster carer up to is 3. And there's a good reason for that, because after 3, we all consider that a little bit unmanageable, and also constitute, as in terms of the regulations, it starts to look more like a children's home or a residential home rather than a foster home. Yeah. And remember, you know, we want to create families for these children. We want children to join our families. So although you might be approved to care for 3 foster children, that doesn't mean you have a set number of children who are in the home. Because very often our foster carers, and we encourage it if possible, they've got their own children, they've got families that they're raising alongside their work as foster carers. So it's up to a maximum of 3, provided you've got 3 spare rooms, provided you've got some experience, and you know you've got you're robust, you're patient, and you feel able to cope.
Okay, this is very important. So now I would like to continue by asking you what happens with this amount of money that is received. Does it go to pay for example, the children's school fees, their food, their school uniforms, what happens with this money?
Yeah, great question. What the fostering allowance is, it recognises that there are costs that foster carers are going to have in terms of caring for these children. So it kind of looks at things like food. It looks at things like children have savings. And we set out the amount of savings. If I've got time, I'll talk that through with you actually, and because it's quite interesting how it's broken down and what it's broken down into. So things like food, but you know, I get asked all the time, well, I'm going to feed the child anyway. The child's in my house, will be eaten. The child will, of course they will. That's fine. But we want to recognise that. Things like toiletries, personal toiletries for the child. We don't really expect the foster carers to be out of pocket to do that. And so the fostering allowance allows for us to be able to pay for that. A little bit of transport for the child, and we've kind of set that. So anything over and above, say £10 a week or so, we think that we should be talking to the local authority about. But up to £10, we think that should come from the allowance. Clothing, because all children can be quite expensive when it comes to clothing them, and there's no season that is a cheap season anymore. All year round they require clothing. So we give a guide. We say we're expecting each foster carer to spend between, I don't know, £28 to £31 on clothing per week. But we expect the foster carer, with our guidance, to actually use some discretion around there. There are times when a child needs more clothes or more expensive clothes, maybe extra layers in the winter than other periods. So our social worker will work with the foster carer and will advise and guide them on how much should be spent on the child. But I just want to really re-emphasize there, school uniforms, no. We are expecting the local authority to help. We can contribute as foster carers, but it wouldn't be our total responsibility, because as you know, Martha, school uniforms can be quite costly, and it would probably eat into the entire allowance. So I'm trying to think what else. So I think it's that kind of personal toiletries that we're really expecting to be paid for out of your allowance.
Okay, so then the more complex, expensive things like school fees, school uniforms, they will not be deducted from the foster care allowance that the foster carer receives.
Yeah, and it's case by case, of course. We'd want to look at it and have a discussion. And when any child joins you, the very first thing we do is to make clear what our expectations are around how you're going to use the fostering allowance for that child. And very often what we do at Banya is we start to have those discussions even before the child arrives. So the foster carer, Banya, the local authority, everybody who's involved in that child is quite clear how much of the allowance is going and what we are expecting the local authority to provide, because ultimately they are the corporate parent of the child, so they also have a responsibility too.
Okay, excellent. So then a very important question, I think, is how are people registered? For example, am I registered as a freelancer working from home? How do I pay my taxes? How does that entire situation work?
Okay, all right. So the government has already acknowledged and recognises the good work of foster carers, so they make it tax efficient. So all foster carers are actually self-employed, so they benefit from the tax breaks that you have as a self-employed person. And also there are some other benefits just being a foster carer in terms of tax efficiencies. So, for example, you're not taxed on your fostering allowance, and you are not taxed up to a certain amount of earnings. Now, we've kind of done a rough calculation with HMRC's help, and that works out at around 3 children at standard rate. Anything over and above that, then you will be taxed on, and we'll work with you. We've got access to a tax advisor who works with each foster carer should they need it. There are lots of membership organisations that we pay for on behalf of the foster carer so they can access this advice, such as the Fostering Network. They can access that each year. We provide statements of account every year so that foster carers can literally just submit it to their accountant or do their own tax returns, because our statement is very clear, very transparent, and helps you even if you have not studied finance before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I know that we only have 3 minutes left because I know that you're super, super busy, but I would like to ask, what are the financial benefits of being a foster carer?
Okay, well, do you know what I think I will, because I asked you to remind me, didn't I? When we started, yeah. And what I'm looking at there really, because there are, like I said, there are tax breaks that you can get access to being, and if you're self-employed doing other stuff, that also helps you. But at Banya, what we do is we sign everybody up to membership with the Fostering Network. They provide legal advice. They provide lots of advice to help foster carers. We offer a Costco membership. So for those who've got one of those large supermarkets around you called Costco, you can access that. We pay for the membership for 2 members of the household. We do that. We renew it for you on a yearly basis. We also have our comprehensive training program I told you about. We also have a service whereby if you have individual training you want to do, you're interested in, and sometimes it could be outside of fostering, we'll go ahead and support that. And some of our carers have gone on to do MVQs, level 3s. We have several where we sponsored to do master's programs, and we funded that because they've had an interest in a certain subject around their fostering work. And Banya is moving towards being a therapeutic provider. So we have lots and lots of training and support that will help you as a foster carer become a therapeutic foster carer. So you are going to stand out in terms of your expertise. We have lots of social events. Oh, we have so many fun days, seasonal activities that we do that foster carers and foster children and our children at home can get access to. And we have events every half term. We have lots of annual events. Sometimes we have about 2 or 3 a year, which are great fun. And we also try and find some other benefits that we can offer to our foster carers. So that's included things like access to reduced handy people to come and do some work around the home should you need to get that done. We've got long service awards, so that's a very generous amount we give for every 5 years completed service. There are lots, and you said how many minutes have I got left?
1 left. So one big question.
Okay.
Is there a financial benefit of one of our current carers helping us recruit another carer? Because I know that right now we get around 120 requests to place a child per day. Is that correct? Am I using the right number?
Yes, we do. We get lots of, they're called referrals. So that's where the local authority send us details of children that they're looking to find foster homes with. And yet we do get, because we are part of lots of frameworks, so that means we get access really to over 50 local authorities are working with us today. So we have got children placed with them already. We have set frameworks, which basically means that we have done all the due diligence, we've done all the checks with various local authorities up nationally, and they know to trust Banya, so they automatically send us details for children. So we get lots of those a day, but we also have a refer scheme. Have you talked about our refer scheme? Because
that's what I would like to know about that.
Yeah, this is really exciting, Mappa, because this is where we always get asked by our foster carers, listen, I'm loving working with Banya. I've been with Banya for a few years or maybe a few months, and I've got a friend who also wants to foster. What do I do? So we have a refer a friend scheme. So we say, okay, you refer your friends. There's a few ways you can do it. You can just give us the details, or you can actually host a little gathering. And that can be done by Zoom. It can even be done by telephone. We'll find a way to get in front of a few people that foster carers recommend and just talk about fostering. Once they've decided they want to do it, if they do come along, we have a finder's fee, if you like, that we pay to our foster carers for £250 straight away off the bat. Thank you so much, our existing foster carer, for recommending a friend and family. But it doesn't stop there, Mappa, because what we also do is once they get approved with us, there's a further £250 that we pay. And this is really in recognition. This is a real thank you, because we appreciate our foster carers also referring their friends and family. It's a really positive sign for us. And then the third stage of it is when the foster carer that you've recommended as an existing foster carer gets a placement. Guess what? There's another payment there too as well.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
This is amazing. So please, if you're a carer with us, please consider recommending Banya to a friend or family member, your neighbor, your church friend, because we're really, really in need. And there are thousands of children all across the UK who need a foster home. So this is really, really, it helps us a lot and it helps the children a lot. So if you do have someone that you can recommend, please do so. Our details, well, if you're already a carer with us, you know our details.
You know how to get hold of us.
Exactly. You can reach out to your supervising social worker or anyone at Banya that you have contact with. Thank you so much, Flo. I know that you have another meeting, but it has been absolutely amazing having you with us today. Thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you. I've enjoyed every minute and I'm hoping I get invited again, Mappa.
Yes, soon. As soon as you have a little bit of free time, because I know that you're super busy and we're really very thankful that you took the time to be with us.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Bye-bye, Flo. Thank you so much. So for those of you who are still here and watching us live, thank you so, so much for joining. I hope that you can join us again for every Banya chat. We're here every Tuesday live at 12 p.m. and we will be bringing important topics for you to know about fostering, how to become a foster carer. We will answer all of your questions. If you're watching on replay, you can also comment your questions and we will get back to you on the next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.